Alright, wanted to do a video quick about how we're going to handle the issue of water getting into your lower unit. So if you do your lower unit change and you notice it went to a creamy type of texture, I use the blue gear oil. So it's going to be like a dark blue. When it's nice, you can see through it. Then there's going to be like a teal, very brightly colored and creamy. A lot of times you're going to see honey type of gear oil, which is I think what Honda and a lot of other brands use. So it's going to almost go to like from a honey texture, and if you pour it out or dump it out and it's coming out a little like frosting you'd see on cinnamon rolls, probably have water leaking in there. So I purchased an oil seal kit. It actually comes from Honda as just for this occasion. So I'm probably gonna take off the water pump. If you haven't seen that, maybe check out my video on how to change your water pump. But yeah, we're gonna tear this off and then I'll come back to you once this is off and we'll figure out how to take off the shift shaft and things like that. All right, so water pump's off, just taking a look at it. This seal is gonna have to come out and that's gonna get replaced. My pump itself looks pretty good. This is the impeller right here in the pump housing. And then if you look, here's the key. Make sure that key stays on. That's what actually goes against the shaft and then inserts into your impeller just like so to make sure it actually spins. So mine looks pretty good. It's not scheduled to change quite yet. The other thing we've got to do is get these off. Make sure you've got a brand new set. Here are the two pieces that we're going to be putting in. If you don't have spares, these two little keys right here, if you can see them, they typically are expanded. They rust and it makes this metal plate stick on. So I'm going to probably try and pry it off with a screwdriver. There's a bunch of ways you could do it. Heat this up with a torch first. Just make sure you're not damaging much. But again, you almost always damage both of the green and the metal just by removing it. Just gonna get this little metal brush, get all the rest of that gasket off here. All right, remove the lower part of the housing here. Now this lower part's going to be stuck on there a bit. Going to have to use some sort of persuading device. There we go. Now there's one of our potential bad seals right here. We're gonna have all of these O-rings replaced as well as this center one. So I put a little shop towel in here just to make sure that nothing was gonna fall down in there. So here's your drive shaft. This is your shift shaft. One thing I didn't mention, by the time you see this again, this will all be cleaned up and this will all be greased. I'll show you, but just clean these surfaces all up. I'm not going to keep showing every time. Every mating surface, however you want to do it, sandpaper, scraper, plastic scraper, brush, whatever. Make sure you clean up all your mating surfaces. So this is a standard rotation. So if you look, it's got a flat side right here, and that's your neutral. One way forward, the other way reverse. So what we're going to do is, if you have a standard rotation like this one, it's going to go inboard and it's basically going into forward gear. If yours is counter rotation, you're going to have to grab this and turn that into forward gear, which would be out inboard for that one where it's mounted. To not damage it, I'm going to grab it with these pliers here and a piece of cloth, and then we're just going to put it into forward gear. Super easy. It should come up, but we're going to need to get our shift shaft rod guide here. Now, if you use a super skinny screwdriver to try and peel these up, you're putting too much force in one place. This is rubber or maybe hard plastic. It's gonna just come off. So you're gonna want to try something like a larger screwdriver. It's not going to be easy. It's made to keep water sealed in, but there you have it. Take out your shift shaft. You can see not the cleanest oil we're looking for. That's that water intrusion right there. Okay, now we're looking at the propeller shaft holder. Here's your shaft. Your holder is this huge assembly back here. This is a thrust washer. I'm not going to need it. That's just to hold my propeller in place, so I didn't need that. Depends on what kind of propeller you have. Maybe you have an aftermarket. We're going to remove these two bolts. One quick tip I just wanted to offer, if you didn't see the other video, I usually try to use six-pointed, well, maybe this would be better, six-sided sockets. You use 12, you're really only gripping on the tips. You kind of want to grip the whole bolt or nut as much as you can. Honestly, I try to use bigger wrenches. I had to go to a bigger wrench because this one was really seized on there. They're machine threads on these marine engines, not the coarse threads like you see in a lot of construction outside. So if you try to have something that's fused together in the salt water for a long period of time with those fine threads, if you take a lot of power all at once and try to move quickly, you tend to just take the head of that bolt and shear it off. So try to go with something bigger if you can. One other tip, clean your threads. If you see any of that salty, rusty buildup, a lot of times I just run them back and forth on a brush, clean them up. So anything you can do to make this assembly as easy as possible, I would do it. All right, notice they've got these little recesses built in here just so you can get leverage to pry it off. There's one here, and there's also going to be another one on this side. And there we go. Okay, so a couple of things. Number one, as you probably saw, it started leaking oil. I had drained it, but I didn't drain it all the way. You never really can. So make sure that you have a catch pan here ready to collect. Hopefully you did that already. One other thing, there's going to be a thrust washer here. You don't want to lose this. This is just helps keep the right amount of space in here. And I'm going to probably spray this area with brake cleaner just to clean it up. Again, clean everything because this is contaminated oil. Just to give you a quick illustration of how this shim, this thrust shim, I misspoke before, it's a thrust shim, fits in. This is the very back of your shaft that goes to the shift shaft right here. This is where this goes. And this is where that thrust shim fits. Okay, so here's where we got to start removing some oil seals. I won't do all of them, but we're going to have this oil seal as well. This is the shift shaft. And keep in mind these things all have O-rings on the outside. So we're going to have to take, there are two oil seals in here, believe it or not. This is where your propeller, well, your drive shaft really from your power head is coming through. So we're going to have to take two of these oil seals off. I recommend doing one at a time. If you do this method where you're kind of going in at an angle, like so, you get a lot more PSI if you're trying to lift. There are commercial pullers too. However you want to pull these oil seals out. Keep in mind, it doesn't matter if you damage these. We've got new ones. What you don't want to damage is this housing on the outside. So if you need a lot of power, you can kind of get in here like this and get them out. Or if you need a lot of leverage, you can go in here like this. Okay, so there's one, and I'm sure this is YouTube, so there are gonna be a lot of people with better methods than this. So I'd probably go troll through there, maybe go through a car video. because these do come out very quickly all at once, kind of thing. And there we go. So I'm just going to, however you want to pick these out. Clean all that corrosion off, and I'll show you how to put everything back in. I wanted to show one major drawback here and to this whole thing. This seal, it's right here. I can't really show it to you and have the light on at the same time. That seal is something you have to pull. I just put this on top of the gear case assembly whole thing for now. But you'd have to pull this whole propeller shaft out via the back. Essentially, you have to put this through a hole, bolt this down, and then get a special tool to go inside here and undo this, then pull out the whole shaft, which I am not going to do. You can see how many we've replaced as far as water seals, but that's the one that we can't get to from the kit. So if you have a way of doing that, feel free to figure it out, or if you want to get the special equipment to do it. I'm not going to, because if it does leak, then I'll probably just take it to the dealership and admit defeat. All right, time to get these little water seals out of here. Had to go back and check just to make sure, but yeah, the whole thing does eventually pull out just a little deeper. They should be both the same size though. All right, so a couple things here. A couple things with this. If you are going to do this, you're going to want to take off, at some point we're going to have to take off this O-ring on the outside. We can do that right now. All right, so eventually you're gonna have to lube one of these up, the brand new one, and put it on here. First, we're gonna need to put the seals in here, the water seals. The problem is that you don't wanna have this thing all slippery in your hand while you're trying to, it's all greased up right on the outside while you're trying to put the oil seals back in. So I'm just gonna wait on that, and what we're gonna do, I got my brand new oil seal here. And then we've also got some soapy water. So you're gonna wanna lubricate the outside of this with some soapy water. You could use some dish soap if make it super thick concentration if you'd like. What I did also was I found that a 15 mil socket fits pretty much right on with how to pound that. So this is what I'm gonna use in order to pound the seals in. Okay, so got this. This is gonna have a lot more surface area on the back side, so I don't wanna use this and try and damage the seal as little as possible. I'm gonna try and put this in here. It's got that soapy water on there. It goes in pretty easily, this one. So this one, actually you can kind of just get it mostly in place like that. Make sure it goes down nice and even. And then we've also got the other seal. Same thing. Ideally, you want it to go in pretty flat. There it is. Okay, just a little marine grease. This is just Honda grease. It says molybdenum something. Based grease. So just greasing it up. Don't be afraid to get it nice and goopy. I'm just gonna put this right back on here. Oh, forgot to clean it. I'm gonna clean it. All right, see I cleaned it up. Just getting a little marine grease. This is Honda grease, but whatever marine grease you want to use, I think could be all right. Just get this O-ring nice and lubed, because really the water could have been coming in from any of these. And it's just going to go, well, probably should have done that last. There we go. There we go. This one's ready to go back in. All right, so what I found best for me was a 1 1/4, and it fits about as good as I could find towards the end. Again, using that side, look how much more purchase than that thin wall on this side. Well, relatively. So this is going in a little soapy water just on the edges. It all got soapy water. So it goes in this way. So we're trying to make sure it gets about as flat an entry as it can. So I'm going to push on that side. There we are. Let's get our socket and our little persuader. Oh, it doesn't really work out too well, does it? So you could get like a little piece of wood block there, but I'm just going to use my rubber mallet. Easier than wood block. And these are super cheap. I think it was like $7 or $8 at the local hardware store. Time for the other one. Again, soap right on the outside. As much as you can do by hand is what I want to do. Which it looks like this one might go pretty much all the way. I'll probably give it a few love taps here at the end. One thing to note, these are going back in here, but I'm going to wait until I'm ready to put the shift shaft, because this little tab, if you remember, was kind of covering the shift shaft, the shift rod guide. So I'm going to wait until this is just about to go on the gear case assembly to put it back on. Okay, we're going to remove this. It's a big one. You're gonna want to make sure that looks pretty good, but still gonna have to replace it. So I'm gonna clean this up real quick, and then I'll be back to show you. I'll lube it up and put it back on. All right, so just a little grease here. Well, kind of a lot of grease. Rub it around on the fingers, and then just make sure it gets all over this new O-ring. There we go. So as soon as this goes on, I don't really want this O-ring to be sitting on the table. This thing is going to pick up every little bit of dust and salt I just took off. While I'm here though, I take a little bit of the extra that was coming off of my fingertips and just put it on that little thrust shim. And that is going to go actually right here. Just helps to kind of make it stick just a little bit. Doesn't have to be a whole lot of grease, but helps it stick just a little bit in case it going in a little off kilter or whatever, and then that thrust shim will make sure that it's in the exact right place. All right, so on goes my O-ring. Just look at this and make sure you're not tearing it up while you're trying to get it past some of these sharp gears here. Put it over the whole thing first, actually. Get it down into the groove here, and then just all the way around. There we go. Now that's seated, and you see the thrust shim is in place. Make sure you don't tilt it, and this doesn't have it up or down. Just make sure we get it aligned here. blocking some of that, but you can get the idea. Now we can bolt it back into place. Okay, fresh, clean bolts. Just a little view down the shaft. See how it looks like Mickey Mouse down there? So remember, you wanted to turn towards the inboard side, which is going to be this side, and that's where essentially this little part, that's your shift shaft, is going to have to come down here, inboard side, and go in that Mickey Mouse hole over on the right. Which hard to see, but you can see it's in there if you were here. Anyway, so that's in, and the other way you can tell is look at the flat side of this. It's facing the inboard side, so we did the right thing. When we shift it back into neutral, it'll be facing dead ahead. Okay, so I did lube a little bit inside here, inside the water seals. Easier probably just to lube this shaft up a little bit. Molybdenum grease, Honda grease, marine grease. And it's got this little, you see it's got one side right here. And that's where it goes in the very back. Can't mix it up. It's gonna go right back in. And if you recall, this wasn't the easiest thing to get out. So probably gonna take just a little bit of persuasion to get back in. So I got, this is a 13/16. It's just something to fit over the top here. So I can kind of lightly persuade it in. It's got a nice hole right through the middle so that it'll fit right through that shift shaft. Make sure everything's flush. Make sure that oil seal looks really good, which it does. Make sure it's not warped or anything like that. And then we're gonna make sure that this goes back into neutral. Probably should have done it before we put this back on, but now's as good a time as any. Heard it click, there's neutral. Flat side's here now. You wanna try reverse. There we go, reverse. And you wanna make sure that cruising position, or sorry, the dead ahead position is going to be your neutral. How do you know? Spin your drive shaft and check to see if you've got your propeller shaft moving, which I don't. So you know you're in neutral and your cruising shift is forward. So let's just put the little bottom of the water pump back on. All right, so this is the top of the, they call it the vertical shaft. I call it the drive shaft, but this is right at the base. I'm gonna put a lot of grease in here. If you can see closely, it's a bearing in there. So you're gonna need to oil that. I don't think it gets oiled by the gear case. There was a lot of grease here that was definitely not gear oil before, so I'm just gonna put some more Honda grease in there. All right, so another little bit of grease. Rub it around. Put it all over this. It's like an O-ring. I guess you can still call it that, just not in the shape. You definitely want enough that it's going to stick, because it's going to have to go on upside down. So there, I got it in that one. A little more grease here. All right, so got those greased up enough where they are going to stay there when I turn this upside down. And then let's lube up that shaft a little bit. And then last thing, lube up just a little more actually. And then I'm gonna put on these water seals. Just make sure when they come in contact right around here, there's no nastiness. Over that little hump, and then the main event. And everything fits as it should. I should mention there's a gear case grommet and a rubber setting block back here, and they can come out. I've never had one happen, but it says it in the book, so just know that it's a possibility. And this is fairly foolproof because you've got everything lined up the way it's supposed to. There we are. Get a little more for this one. This is going to be the top of your water pump. There's your impeller cover. That's your lower pump cover. Again, going on upside down. Don't be afraid to grease it just a little extra. Make it stick in place. And then look how it needs to go. There we go. Now, again, where's my key? It's in there. Make sure you've got your key. Be really frustrating. The way if you want to do it the way they suggest, look at my other video. But since this was all one part, I didn't need a new impeller. There went my key right there. You got your key. Actually, I'll probably try to put it on this way. There we are. And then make sure this is ready to go. Always clockwise. Put your 4 bolts in and you're good. Just replace almost all the water seals that can make your gear case leak. You just got to fill it. One last thing to add before we go is keep in mind there are 2 little extras that come with the pack. Those are going to be harder to see. Those little O-rings are going to be for your drain and fill bolts, so make sure you put those in as well, brand new. And again, make sure these things are so small, they really do need to be at the very base of the bolt. So if this were the bolt, make sure you slide that all the way down so that that O-ring is at the very base of it. Sometimes they're a little off and crooked, and then you put it on and then it bunches up as you screw it back on, and that could easily just be the fix. There you go. Waited to the end of the video to tell you, but maybe it was just bad fluid change.